Thank you, Clementina, Mufaro, and Alessandra, and team. Amazing presentation, and very good to see that there is always a positive feedback from the client side about these initiatives. That means a lot. Jose will now take us through a Q&A session. I see there's a number of questions that has been raised by colleagues. And Jose, Prudence, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Samir. So I like that. It's funny, Mufar already answered some of the questions that we asked in the previous session as part of his speech. So I'd like to ask a little bit more about the average occupancy rate. Mufaro, you told us that before joining the service, you were not aware of how many guest houses you had UNSCR, and now, of course, now you have, and now you know. I'd like to know if you have a little bit more details about that. Also, if there is any change in terms of customer acceptance, are they more happy for this? And finally, something that you briefly touched upon in your presentation, and it's about the management of the cost, right? Because now we know we are in a tough space in that moment. So I would like to know how the platform helps you to manage those. Over.
Thank you. Yes. So yeah, it's a history that we would not want to talk, but I think now we can safely say, oh, we didn't know the number of guest houses that we had, so with a lot of support and training coming through as part of the management processes coming from WFP, and also being stimulated by the policies that we set up within the organization, where it required the mandatory use of the UN booking hub for offices to address all aspects with regards to bookings and invoicing, which becomes a part of the administrative instruction that we track and report to our senior management on that aspect. So the occupancy levels for all our guest houses, I think all 92 of them, if I can put it from a global perspective, it averages around 50%. So what does this mean? It means that if you've got a guest house with, say, 14 rooms, at any given moment during the year, at least 7 rooms are occupied. So from that perspective, it already shows that there is room to absorb any other partners or UN agencies that would normally be frequenting in those remote areas that we work. So then this gives the allowance for us to open up the platform, and this then leads to the global picture of 40% of our occupants is coming from personnel from other UN agencies. So as we look at this, this also a little bit then touches onto the third part on how the platform helps us to manage the use of the UN booking hub in terms of how we can improve on probably efficiencies as well. So by looking at the occupancy levels, looking at the utilization of the UN booking hub, you are able to trace and see the payment methods that are also being used. It could be direct DSA deductions or salary deductions. And as part of our administrative purposes, we have actually made a deliberate move to go on in 2026 to eliminate all cash handling practices by guest houses. Cash handling would normally be out of the total revenue collection that is obtained. About 30%, 25 to 30% is cash handled by guest house managers in various country operations, which already presents opportunities for probably fraud as well as non-compliance in terms of financial governance systems as well. So already from that perspective, we are able to then look at how we can tighten our policies and putting in place measures that can be done to try and remove or reduce costs. Other aspects that we have been able to deal with from a guest house management perspective is when you look at the occupancy levels that you get in any particular location. If you see your guest house going for 0 occupancy for the rest of the year, it means there's a problem. Do you need the guest house? Probably the answer is no. If you see your guest house probably getting to 20 to 30% for the rest of the year as part of the occupancy, then these become important questions that the representatives and their senior management would have to be able to answer in terms of how we can then improve on efficient utilization of resources. We have done some work with WFP where we have been able to map and demonstrate, for example, like in Chad, some of our guest houses are within a stone's throw away. And some of those guest houses have been closed, and the WFP is now making use of our guest houses. So with some of those pinpointing in strategic decisions that we can look at from an organization's financial management perspective, especially when we're looking at this era where a number of agencies are actually experiencing a lot of austerity measures, then it becomes much more prudent to look at how you can reduce the level of subsidy, and then making sure that if there's opportunities to have joint guest houses, working with the UN country teams to see how costs can be shared. These already become models as we go into the future that should be bearing fruit on how we can efficiently use our guest houses and improve the management aspect as well. The second question, which I can also highlight in terms of customer acceptances, I would say the feedback which is really coming through the annual customer satisfaction survey, or even comments when we engage with other agencies as well as guests when we go on mission, we are able to be in a position whereby you realize that a lot of aspects really come into play when customers really get to be happy about the guest houses where they stay. These are high risk remote locations. So aspects around security become topical. Our guest house secure? They're certified and they've had UN DSS compliance, which becomes a tick. Guest houses, do they have recreational facilities? It could be some simple measure such as a volleyball pitch. It could be a gym. It could be dartboards or pool tables. These already become support instruments that can help staff health and well-being, especially when you are in those high remote duty stations where over the weekend after working hours, your mind becomes idle, you have nothing to do. It's either you've got your room only and nothing else. So those opportunities that exist, especially when we have made it a standard to say guest houses need to have common areas where staff can meet. They need to have board games. They need to have the gym, even if sometimes it might be challenging for the equipment to be maintained, but there is ways on how that operations have become resilient and are able to ensure that from a health and well-being perspective, all these aspects then lead to improving the staff satisfaction. Something as simple as internet, which I highlighted earlier on. you are in a remote area and you need to connect with your loved ones, and if internet and video calls are not being able to be supported, then it becomes a serious issue that can potentially affect your mental health as a staff member or as a visitor in those remote areas. So there is a lot that customers have been able to give us as feedback from a acceptance perspective, and this is exactly what we seek for in terms of improving our standards.
Well, thank you so much for that. Very comprehensive. We have a question here from our colleague Prudence.
Hi, this question is for the service team. So I would like to know what new features or enhancements you think or plan on doing for the future processes, and how do you think the service can scale?
Thank you, Prudence. Yeah, as I was saying, so every year we run a customer satisfaction survey of our partners. So we send out to around 1,000 focal points worldwide. So from the 7 different organizations. And one of the questions exactly is the satisfaction of the platform, but then what is missing and what they suggest to improve. So I must say that the accommodation service today is quite mature. So we have increased a lot the platform over the years, and we are missing, let's say, we are fine-tuning the platform. We have actually some projects. We are working on also one in collaboration with UNHCR about payments, online payments for the accommodation service, and that we will develop in 2026. But basically, yes, we try to improve as much as possible, and all the improvements are done really based on the actual needs from our client. Thank you.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, like the hottest question right now, how would you think you can like integrate AI into any of the future features and projects?
It's not a hard question because we are already working on it. So we have launched on the UN System Booking Hub for the mobility service, and we will be launched also for the accommodation. So we will have AI functionality, AI chatbot on the available for the users, so on the user side, and also for the service managers, providing the first support for any issues, any problem while navigating and using the platform. Of course, it would be in a first step. Then, as you know, AI is improving based on the use of it. But for accommodations, yes, we are going to launch it in the next few weeks. Thank you. Over to you, Alessandra.
Thank you.
Yes. If I can just jump in, I wanted to say, integrating what Clementina is saying. Of course, we are looking at 2026 as a major year for us to introduce AI wherever makes sense. Okay, and it makes sense everywhere in all service lines. And I think we will discuss with partners, we'll get to operations. I mean, it's not something that we are going to do out of the blue, but is going to be a 2026 year where we focus on new technologies for us to try and automate as much as possible services. Not only to automate, but we would like to use the power of AI to really come up with predictive or recommendations on how to not only, of course, as Clementina was saying, the support part, because that's, let me say, a little bit of the easier part, but use the incredible gold mine of the data that we have to try and come up with proposals. Of course, we will start piloting on WFP data. For everybody to know, we cannot and we never enter any partner data unless we have written approval from the partner to actually use the data to provide common services. So this is also going to be something that we will discuss with our partners, but you will see AI being rolled out in many of the services that we are working on, as Clementina was saying, accommodation, mobility, and also probably by the end of the year also on the auctions, on the disposal service. AI might be really, really of great support. Over.
So what, like, I'm interested, I saw in the map that most of your guest houses are located in Africa. So what is
Absolutely.
the expansion plan that you have, or do you have, or maybe you don't have? Why is that? Why is that the case that everything, almost all of the houses are in Africa? Over.
Of course, because let's say that the prerequisite to have a guest house, so UN organization decide to set up a guest house because they cannot grant, their traveling staff cannot be granted to stay in a secure place in such locations. So the majority of the high-risk locations are in Africa and in the Middle East. I'm thinking about Yemen, for example. And so UN organization decide to set up and manage directly the guest houses to ensure the well-being of their staff. So let's say that today the plan to increase it's not a plan, because due to these funding constraints at the moment, the opportunity is on the contrary to consolidate the service. So we have many countries where more than one agencies are managing guest houses at the same location, and where they can work together to understand how to streamline the service and maybe save costs instead of duplicate the service. This is something that we are doing, and we have done, for example, with Mufaro in Chad. As WFP and UNHCR, we have closed some guest houses, and we are using the UNHCR one or vice versa. So just to give you an idea, so the highest number of guest houses today, I think for all the UN agencies, is in South Sudan, is one of the biggest operations for all the UN agencies. But basically, this is a quite mature service. So the majority of guest houses, we are still missing some UN agencies using the platform. So, and we hope they will join us in a few countries. But yes, the major concentration is in Africa. Over to you, Mufaro.
Very clear. Yeah, Mufaro.
Sure. Thank you, Clementina, for highlighting the security aspects as well, which is really quite important. Remember, colleagues, the guest houses that we have are in deep remote locations, and in most of those areas, you probably have nothing. You have to set up structures, probably on government donated land as well, and then you start running a guest house. So one of the primary driving factors that we also use in terms of going through that checklist to say on determining how you need to set up a guest house is also on the aspect of, is there commercial or private entities that are available which can be rented and they can be cleared by security as being compliant to the UN DCO standards? If the answer is yes, then there is potentially no need for an organization to set up a guest house, but for an organization to go into an MOU with the hotel provider and then have some agreements in terms of putting aside rooms that can be used by staff if they come on mission, or staff who will be staying on as residents as well. We have had situations before. You'll be probably wondering why in Africa. You find that in other countries like like Poland, like Ukraine, and many other European countries, in situations where the infrastructure still exists and can be used and cleared by security, then there is no need for the organization to plant more guest houses, because the cost of running a guest house, it becomes quite high. And just to put it into context, the guest houses should be run efficiently, and organizations who have guest houses, you find that they are not probably realizing any profit margins because there is a need to have a lot more subsidies. And so the aspects around reducing the amount of investment becomes quite important because of the situation that exists within the various operations as well. So over to you, Alexandra.
Yeah, I wanted exactly to touch base on Mufaro's point. Guest houses are a cost to the organization. Very rarely they might be in full cost recovery, as it says, because at least in WP we consider a cost of the operations to be in an area which doesn't have other alternatives. So I'm sure the same as UNHCR, as I posted in the chat, we are mutually benefiting on our partnership by exchanging a lot of operations. If we have an issue, Clementina reaches out to Mufaro and vice versa. We share, issues and solutions. Always for our organization, the first way to go would be to actually use commercial availability, alternatives, because they are cheaper for the organization to run and they are flexible. SLAs can be set up and then they can be closed. While closing when you invest in a guest house, of course, the investment generally repays itself in the long run if it does. So what I'm trying to say is that where agencies can, when you find guest houses, is because there is no other possibility for our staff to have a safe place where to stay. And therefore, before opening some, they need to be really, really carefully assessed and given special okay by the organizations to be set up. And so, of course, the spreading of these guest houses should be really limited to the places where high security reasons or for whatever other reasons, operational reasons, calls for the organization to put an extra financial effort to manage them. Of course, once they are there and they are safe, and for example, maybe Clementina, in our customer satisfaction survey, annual customer satisfaction survey that we run, and Mufaro, you do the same, through the UN Booking Hub, we know that many people, when they say, why did you choose a WP or UNHCR guest house? They say because of the safety, for example. So, of course, people like to use our guest houses, a UN guest house, because they are provided with safety measures. But that, again, is a cost and can be done only in some specific context, and therefore there are first, you need to see if there are commercial availability. Secondly, we look into other agencies that can host our staff, and then only as a third, let's say, lever, we go to set up a guest house. And this is how the network of guest houses is actually spreading in the UN. Over.
Yeah, just okay. That answer was very clear. So I have a question later for Mufaro about how was the adoptance of the system, maybe. But then let's go to Prudence first, and then we go back to you, please.
Thank you, Jose. Hi. My question is kind of like an extension of what you all just mentioned. I was wondering how the platform can handle peak humanitarian crisis or during a critical time in a history, and how does the system and the service kind of support all of that with their within the power. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I didn't get exactly the question. I don't know, Alessandra, if you got it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, it was which is the role of the service under the UE emergency context.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, no, of course, we can really quick. So we have the example today. So we are supporting our colleagues from WFP, UNICEF, other agencies in the Gaza Strip. So in a few locations where they need, also for security reasons, because having in one platform registered all the visitors that for emergency situation you need to evacuate that location, so you have really quickly a list that you can download, and in each room where the staff is in each room, so you have all this information. So it's really a useful tool for them, and we can support to set up the single page really quickly. So the platform can support an emergency situation. If tomorrow we are contacted by colleagues in a situation where they need to set up the accommodation service, we need just to receive a few information, and within 24 hours we set up the page and the digital office. Also, in some situations
situation, for example, where bookings are not available because, of course, you are deployed in emergency context, that you cannot book the service like in countries where the security situation is different. We can also set up the digital office side. So it's only the management side, the support on the management work. And so we have a few situations where they have only the back office, the setup for the back office to handle the occupancy, the invoicing, etc. So I hope I replied.
You did. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Great question. Mufaro, yes, I am curious about to hear your opinion. How was the process? Firstly, to get the UNHCR with the system, but also how do you get an individual guest house up to the system? Oh.
No, thank you so much. So the process has been quite interesting. I'm probably ashamed to say at one time, probably 10 years ago or so, around 2018, if you asked us as UNHCR, how many guest houses did you have? Do you have? We didn't know. Right. So from that perspective, this became the antidote of how we could be able to leverage on understanding and improving our coordination within the organization. 2018, I think the number we could register was 45 or 40. And the number kept on increasing over the years as we started discovering new guest houses. Which is something, but obviously from a management of change perspective, there's been a lot of investment time being put in, thanks to the support of WFP, the trainings, the webinars, and now we have almost a seamless process whereby everybody knows that you need to register the guest house. You need to make use of the UN booking platform. So it becomes quite easy in terms of how the accommodation team is able to support the country offices, and obviously we work in close collaboration. There are simple forms that are available, or which are used to collect the data points for a particular guest house. And then once that information is, including the pictures, the types of accommodation, do you have wellness facilities? How many beds do you have? Do you have a kitchen? Type of power? Do you have Wi-Fi? All that kind of information gets documented, and then the UN Booking Hub team creates that, logs that guest house within the platform for allowing visibility. But from a management of change perspective, access for use to that guest houses can only be granted if there is a focal point who has been appointed, who has received training, and then who takes ownership in terms of how the processes of making bookings, updating the pages, as well as the invoicing is being done. So it becomes a process whereby you don't just open it up where you have colleagues that have not received the necessary expertise or training from a management of change perspective. It's been a journey, and I can say as of now, we are no longer discovering guest houses as we used to do, but now this is I think a partnership that's excelling going forward, and to motivate the operations from also participating, there's also awards, excellence awards that are being issued carrying the UN Booking Hub emblem, like your 4-star, 5-star awards that you get for your guest houses or Airbnb or hotels, which really then goes a long way in motivating the field in terms of making sure that the platform becomes an important functionality in how operations can actually support their expansions with regards to emergencies as well.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, we have 5 more minutes left. If there is anyone, 3 more minutes, if there's anyone who wants to raise a question, please do so. Otherwise, I will take the chance to ask to Clementina if there is, you've told us that there is a site where each service manager gets and sees basically their guest house, but is there also a site for the agency? Like for instance, UNHCR, a whole site dedicated for UNHCR colleagues to oversee how all the other guest houses are doing? Oh.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe I can
Yes.
answer it so that Clementina does not come through this. Yes.
Yeah, no,
So,
yes, the real testimony from our partners.
Yeah. So we have the access to the Tableau, which is a powerful platform that is consolidating all the data in the UN booking hub, from the occupancy to the types of visitors to the invoicing and expenses tracking as well. So it records the country operation, the guest house, provides the 12-month rolling year-to-date figure, as well as the month-to-date figure, where you have that visibility. So it has eliminated a lot of processes whereby you have to use Excel. These are reports that can be viewed by senior managers in terms of how they can track on various efficiency drivers, which we are happy to use. And it's been a phenomenal journey, and it's been working for us. Maybe Clementina, you can then add.
Yeah, no, this is an additional improvement on the platform, because at the beginning was, developed for the single service managers, the country office, and then a few years ago we developed a centralized platform with a global view of all the data, accessible by the HQ, basically, or also regions of the single organization, to access and then have a view of all their global KPIs to run analysis, etc. So, yeah, and thank you, Mufara, for the details.
Alessandra, would you like to give some closing remarks for this session?
No, just can I suggest everybody to reach out to us, and I'm sure you put in the chat all the contacts, either through DCO or directly to us. We'll call you anyway, DCO, no problem. But do reach out also just to discuss with us opportunities, situations, and whatever. We are very open, and just to, again, we want to have happy customers. So do engage in case you want to know more. And we are very, very interested to make sure that this becomes the largest possible available platform for humanitarian colleagues to find the right accommodation in the field. So that's my last comment. And thanking everybody for the patience of going through this webinar.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. So we have only 3 minutes left. So maybe it's worth to mention here out loud the question of, just to get your response on the question posed by Hilda Gaviria about how can entities gain access to the facilities module.
Yeah, no, I think Flavia already shared our contact. So
Yes.
The process is always the same for all our services. So you contact us, we show you in detail the platform, and we give the possibility to test it for a pilot period, and then if satisfied, move forward with the agreement and rollout of the solution in different locations. So this is, but yes, here there's a contact to unfacilities@unbooking.org to send us an email. The team is this one. We are the same team. Me, Flavia. we are missing Eduardo. We can also talk about medical. So if you want the other webinar we had.
Well, thank you so much, Clementina, Faro, Alessandra, and Flavia in the background as well, for taking this webinar forward. We look forward to have all colleagues join us in the last 2 webinars of the GSS, which is on online option services by WFP, and also the UN Digital Treasury Solution by UNHCR and UNDP, which is coming in the next 2 weeks. And with that, we thank you all for your time. Have a great day.